Yo, what's good, everybody? Welcome back to L Dubs Boxing. So today we talking about some wrestling. So it's really L Dubs Wrestling. So I got two guys in here with me, Bruce Goals and LeVar Cooper in the building. We're gonna talk about this wrestling. I'm about to say boxing, but talk about this wrestling, yo. So salute to y'all, man. How y'all doing?
Doing good, brother. Thank you for having me on, man. I really do appreciate it, Lawrence, man. It's an honor, man. It's a pleasure.
Yeah,
Same here, Lawrence. Same with me, man.
no
And and
problem.
and, and to talk about wrestling, we just can, as much as we all love boxing, we all have a little soft spot in our heart for wrestling, and we can rap wrestling,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I appreciate you guys coming on, man.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
So where you want to get started at? Let's talk about how we got to the wrestling and what was like favorite fighters and stuff like that. I mean, favorite wrestlers. I'm sorry, I'm gonna keep saying that. Our favorite wrestlers, stuff like that. How y'all get started?
Well, I got started a long time ago. I was watching wrestling seriously back in the '60s.
Uh-huh.
Bruno Sammartino was the world champion. Tanaka and Fuji were tag teams. It was, I was basically a kid, and my grandfather used to watch it, and he'd be jumping off the couch, and I was fascinated by it. I've been a fan ever since. I was, been a hardcore fan really since I was in high school. We used to go see matches around the state, since somebody could drive, and wrestling's just been so much fun. It's it's like it's an athletic ballet. These guys are so talented and in such physical shape, and they work so hard not to hurt each other and themselves, and try to make it look as believable as possible. I've been fascinated with it, and I'll still catch it every once in a while when there's no boxing chats going on. I'll still switch over and catch it. And last night I heard Drew McIntyre's got COVID now, so that's a pretty big thing. He's like the biggest face in boxing right now, I guess, and he caught the bug. So
Yeah,
how
I
about
heard
you
about that.
guys? Yeah.
Go ahead, LeVar. Let me hear what you got.
For me, man, ever since I was 6 years old, man, and to be honest with you, I got to give kudos to my dad, man. My dad, he has a lot of wrestling matches on VHS, man, and I used to get his tapes, and I used to play his tapes, and that's how I fell in love with wrestling, man. And honestly, man, I like seeing Sting, the Four Horsemen, the Steiner Brothers, the Road Warriors, man. That was the era that I grew up on, and if it wasn't for my dad, man, I would have never fell in love with the sport of wrestling, man. Those guys, man, they give it all. They put their bodies on the line and everything, man. So I would say at the age of 6, that's when I started to really watch, wrestling.
Yeah, about the same for me too. Probably like 5 or 6. What's up, JC and Mo Boxing? Salute to you guys. I grew up in that era too with Saturday Night Main Events and Hulk Hogan and
Yeah.
NWA stuff like that. So I just remember like all my friends, we'll watch wrestling and we'll go outside and put the moves on each other. You know what I'm saying? And like at first I thought it was just two wrestling organizations, WWF and WCW. But we used to go to the drugstore, like the local store we had close to us, and we'll go to the magazine section and we'll see like the wrestling magazine, and we'll look through it, like, who is Jerry the King Lawler? You know what I'm saying? Who is Kerry Von? We didn't know who these guys was because we didn't have it on TV where I'm from. So my friend, his grandpa had tapes, so I can relate to you, LeVar. He had tapes of like Mid-South Wrestling and Jerry King Lawless, all that stuff that we didn't know nothing about. So he kind of educated us. So when we see like Rick Rude coming into WWF, but his granddaddy already knew about Rick Rude. We didn't know nothing about him. We just thought he was a new guy and stuff like that. So yeah, man, it's crazy.
But some of the wrestlers that Bruce Goes mentioned too, man, I remember seeing them, man, and man, they back in the I've seen some matches back in the '60s too, like on tape as well, man. Those guys went all out, man. It's man, they're no
Well,
joke.
you know what I saw it go from? I saw it go from like really basically a high school gymnasium operation to rocking wrestling when WrestleMania 1 came around. It was the biggest thing in the world. It went from they actually had it at my high school in the gymnasium. They used to have little theaters around New England where they had wrestling every week. It was basically a territorial sport, and it's the same with Mid-South. They stayed in the Mid-South. Florida stayed in Florida. The Von Erichs stayed in Texas. Ric Flair, they stayed in the Midwest and down south. But anyway, when Vince McMahon's father died, he took over the business, and cable TV was just in its infancy. And Vince said, "Screw this, man. I can go to California. They can see my shows in San Francisco and Seattle. They can see them down in Texas." And he slowly but surely put all these small organizations out of business until it was just him and WCW, which was the NWA. They became WCW, and it was the Monday Night Wars. And man, it was a thing to see, man. Hulk Hogan switching sides. And I'm sure you guys lived through those Monday Night Wars. What do you think about that?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you good. I was in high school, you know what I'm saying, when that started to happen, like 96, 97, where just about to go to high school. And that was the biggest thing because they had wrestling back to back. You know what I'm saying? I think 8 o'clock was Nitro, then 9 o'clock was Raw. So Monday night we'd be glued to the TV, and then Tuesday we go back to school and we start talking about what The Rock said or what Stone Cold did or what happened on Nitro. So yeah, man, that was like the peak right there of the wrestling business, looking back on it, because you have both guys in competition going head to head with each other, and they try to outdo each other. So yeah, that was a big moment right there.
Well, see, one of them, I think it was WCW would run their shows live, and the WWE would tape their shows the day before. So the WCW knew what was going on, with access to the internet. We can see things as they're happening, and they would tell the audience, "Oh, you can go over there, and you're going to see that Cactus guy get beat by Shawn Michaels. Or you can stay here and see a live World Championship match." So it was a really cutthroat war. It was. Who knows if anybody died over that? It was so real, and there was so much money involved.
A couple of years ago, here in Virginia, WCW and WWF, they were in town. One was at the Norfolk Scope, and the other one was at the Hampton Coliseum. And that's when D-Generation X, they rode out with the tank. And man, there was so chaos and mayhem during that time when both of those shows were taping in the same area.
Oh yeah, and if there was an independent show on there, Vince and McMahon would actually go as far as to pay the arena to chain their doors shut, and one show could put one of these independent organizations right out of business. And he did it one by one until it was like him and Ted Turner head to head. And like you're saying, the war down in Virginia, that with the tanks and everything, that was crazy stuff. That was a work. Vince took it over, and he acted like it was still in the hands of Ted Turner, and they played that for a long time. It was so funny, But Vince, he owns everything now. There are a few independent. I mean, they're an independent still, and they survive. Hardcore wrestling fans keep them in business. But basically, if you want to watch televised wrestling, you watch that one. Now the AEW. I don't know if you ever get into that, but I can't. I watched it a couple of times. We're talking old school wrestling now. So where am I going? I'm showing my age by talking this new stuff here. Go ahead.
Now I want to hear LeVar. I want to hear what you were saying about what was you saying about when you was in Virginia? What happened again?
Yeah, the Monday Night Wars.
Yeah, it was the Monday Night Wars, and both WWE and WCW, they were both in town. One show was happening over at the Norfolk Scope, and the other one, I believe, was at the Hampton Coliseum. And that's really not, those two cities aren't that far apart from each other. So that's when D-Generation X, they were performing that night, and they showed up in tanks. So what they did was, and I believe WWE was at the Norfolk Scope, and they took the tank, and they pointed the barrel of the tank towards the area of the where the Hampton Coliseum was, to show WCW, hey, we're ruling tonight. We're taking over tonight.
Yeah, I remember that. And you're right though. Hampton is like right across the bridge because I'm from Virginia. You from Virginia too, LeVar?
I am
Okay.
born in Norfolk, raised in Virginia Beach.
Okay, I'm from Danville, but I spent a lot of time in the 757. I played basketball at Christopher Newport.
Oh,
And I,
okay,
you
yeah.
know what I'm saying? Yeah. So yeah, you're right. I remember that because that was like that was a big thing right there because when Triple H did it, you know what I'm saying, he got some heat from that. You know
Oh
what I'm
yeah,
saying?
he did, brother. He did, man.
Yeah.
It's like that night, man. It seemed like the Cowboys and the Redskins was playing, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
everybody, everybody was just going crazy. You saw the true WWE fans, you saw the true WCW fans. But I believe it helped both businesses. So
Yeah.
that was a historic night.
Well,
So
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
oh, you good. Go ahead, Bruce. Go ahead.
I was going to say that the thing about WCW is they didn't really have a boss who worked with them. You know, with the WWE, it was what Vince said went. Everybody agreed with them. WWE had so many, like actually, you know, the New World Order. They were actually a clique, and they pretty much wanted to write their own scripts. And then you had, you know, the, all the different wrestlers. Nobody was following one guy. There was basically no chief and a lot of Indians, and that's what sunk the ship. In the WWE, it was an orderly thing. It was, you know, a boss there. Your check was there every week. It wasn't like that in WCW, and it eventually, you know, it sunk the ship for sure. It sunk the ship. There's so much happening at that time behind the scenes, you know, because we're talking about $1 billion businesses and 2 billionaires at the helm. So it was like really no holds barred. There was more action going on behind the scenes than there was in the ring.
Yeah.
You know, being a spectator, and you know, I was in the fitness industry, so I knew a few wrestlers. We had a wrestling school in my state. I'm sure every state does, but you know, wrestling, fitness, it's like boxing. It all goes hand in hand. You're gonna meet these guys. You're gonna run into them. You know, it's a close knit group, and you know, you get a lot of these backroom stories, and you know they're not lies when 2 or 3 guys tell them to you. You know you're getting the truth, and you know I listened to this stuff, and I was fascinated by it. There was so much going on, and how ruthless it was. But man, it's really. You can read books about this stuff. It's fantastic, and you know, I love chopping up wrestling once in a while too, man. You know, getting those memories dusted off, because I went to a lot of matches, man. A lot of all these eras. You know, we got the Hulk Hogan era. We the PG rated era. It's been crazy. You know, it's been crazy, and it's been a trip. And boxing and wrestling, they seem to go hand in hand anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
They do.
You know,
Hey, so I want to know what's some of you guys' favorite wrestlers coming up? Like who y'all really like and you know what I'm saying, went die hard for.
coming up now.
No, I'm talking about back in the day, you know, back in
Okay.
when you was coming up.
Well, listen, dude, I saw Hulk Hogan when he first came on the scene. It was I think it was around 1979, 1980. And he wrestled at the Rhode Island Auditorium. It was a revamped thing where they turned it into a nightclub, and they had wrestling and boxing matches there at the old Rhode Island Auditorium. And they had Hulk Hogan was there, and he was managed by Freddie Blassie. And you could tell they were building him up. And after the matches were over, there was a bar right next to the place called the Penalty Box. I knew the owners there, and all the wrestlers would go there afterwards. Vince McMahon was in there dancing. It was a show, but Hulk Hogan was there. His head was just about touching the ceiling, and they were all saying, "This is the guy. This is the face of wrestling. This is the guy coming up." And sure enough, it was. He was a bad guy back then. You know, he slammed Andre the Giant. They said the first time he slammed him was at that WrestleMania thing, but he slammed him years before that, and it came to fruition. Hulk Hogan, he was the landlord. He ran the business for years. He had a mansion next to Vince McMahon in Connecticut. He lived there for 10 years. So they were buddies. You know, I guess until that federal indictment with the steroids and all that stuff went down, they were in bed together.
Yeah. Yes, sir. I think coming up, my favorite wrestlers, of course, Hulk Hogan, and I like the Ultimate Warrior, but I did like the $1 Million Man and Mr. Perfect. Those was my guys. I used to like them. Arn Anderson. I used to do the Stein Buster on my friends and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? So I just like the Four Horsemen, like heavy. I like the best edition of the Four Horsemen was when they had Barry Windham in there. When they got rid of Lex Luger and Ole and that Four Horsemen right there with Ric Flair, Arn Tully, and Barry Windham. That's probably the best rendition of them because they was all good in the ring. You know what I'm saying? Because when they had Lex Luger, he was kind of stiff and whatnot. I really never liked Lex Luger, but I like some Barry Windham and Arn Anderson. Those are one of my two underrated guys. Far as like, I used to like Bret Hart, but I like Shawn Michaels more than Bret Hart. There's a lot of guys I used to like. Razor Ramon. I seen some guys talking about that in the chat. Beers about BK. It's a lot of good wrestlers.
Oh, dude, you can go on and on. Hey, I want to shout out the chat, man. We got my boy Curtis Anderson, my brother in there. We got
salute Kurt,
Ricky E, JC, man. It's D-Lo. You guys all want to
the Mo Boxing.
Lawrence, Mo Boxing, man. I forgot about my brother there, Mo Boxing. He's got an award, man. I think he had the longest talk show on the internet for going on for, I don't know, was it 10 hours? He had more dislikes on there than anybody. He deserves a badge of honor, that Mo Boxing. I'll tell you, he really does.
Somebody wants to? If y'all want to jump on, I'll drop the link in the chat. No problem.
That's what I'm saying, man. We chop it up on here.
No problem. Give me 1 second. I got you. Go ahead. Keep cooking, bro.
For me, man, like when I first saw The Undertaker, man, when he came out, man, he was unbelievable, man. Coming out, with that theme music, man, he oh my gosh, man, he just lit up the place, man. And speaking of the Four Horsemen, man, Tully Blanchard, he was a good one too. I like Sting, Nikita Koloff, his brother Ivan Koloff, the Steiner brothers, especially when Scott used to do the Frankensteiner, man. That was my move. I used to, every time when the Steiner brothers would wrestle, I would always want to see him do the Frankensteiner. That was pretty impressive coming from a person of his size. The Great Muta, his epic matches with Sting, Terry Funk. I like Dustin Rhodes, man. He was a good one too. Man, the list, like you said, Bruce and Lawrence, the list goes on and on, man. We just had some great wrestlers back then. I'm not saying that we don't now. Jake the Snake Roberts, he was another one. Sid Vicious, Sid Justice, whatever name he wanted to go by, and Vader, man. I like Vader too, especially with that.
Leon White, man. Hey, you remember when they used to have the World's Strongest Man on CBS?
Yes.
There was always a wrestler or two in there. So that just goes to show you how physical those guys are. They're picking up refrigerators and running on their backs. And Ken Patera, I think he came in third. He was an unbelievable physical specimen. He could, I think he set records with the discus. Mark Henry set records with deadlifting and bench pressing. These guys are real serious athletes, and when they have to get down to their performing like that, that's talk about going from one extreme to the other. They take acting lessons, they take dancing lessons, gymnastics, and still hit the gym take care of those bodies, build those muscles. And they don't, seriously, they don't use steroids like they used to. It's really it's still there, but it's not rampant like it was at one time. I guess the big names can get away with it, but the average jobber or the mid carder, you look at them now, and these guys are like 210 pounds, 190 pounds. But back in the day, 250 was average.
Right.
275 was, respectable, but they were huge. They were they were messed up, artificially large, but you just don't see that anymore. Now they're more athletic. You see more acrobatic moves. Right. It's a whole different thing, even physically. Like Sting, those guys like that. they had the best of both worlds. Sting was a physical specimen, and he was athletic as they come. You know, he's still trying to put a show in every once in a while. But he, for the better part, you know, we've seen the best of Sting a long time ago. But he was a dedicated wrestler for sure.
It would have been. Oh, it would have been awesome from when him and the Ultimate Warrior, when they were the Blade Runners. I would have loved to see where they would have went if they would have stayed together.
Yeah, down in Texas with the Von Erichs. That's where they started. The Blade Runner. Hey, Curtis Anderson. Man.
What's up, Kurt? Salute, Kurt.
Hey, Lawrence, man. What's going on, Bruce Gold? Who's the other gentleman?
LeVar Cooper. What's going on, Kurt?
Oh, hey, what's up, man? What's going on, LeVar Cooper? Yeah, man. I'm gonna be on here for a little while before I eat. I had to get on, talk about old school wrestling, man. It's funny because we didn't know about Ric Flair coming from, you know, around New York. We had WWF with Vince McMahon. I mean, I go back until like the mid-70s. I'm showing my age, the mid-70s. Like, you know, my favorite wrestler by far all time was a Mexican wrestler named Mel Mascaras. He was awesome, man. He can counter any move. When you talk about technical ability, he was awesome, man. I mean, that guy, you know, he was cut real nice, man. But technically, you know, because he came from that Lucha Libre, there was a whole lot of Mel Mascaras, but he was the best. He had a brother that wrestled too in Japan, but he had a battle with a guy called Dick the Bulldog Brower, and him and Big Cat Ernie Ladd. I don't know if you guys remember them, but Ken Patera.
Absolutely.
Yep. You remember them, Bruce?
Yeah, for sure, man.
And you had Bruno Sammartino.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you had who else?
Well, Kurt,
Ivan Putski, the Pope, Stan the Man, Stasiak.
Yeah.
Yep.
You remember when you were mentioning the Muhammad Ali and Tony Inoki matches as the biggest pay-per-view of all time?
Right.
Well, on the undercard of that was the return of Bruno Sammartino. He came back from a broken neck against Stan Hansen. You remember that?
I remember that. I remember we came back from Stan Hansen was nasty. Oof.
Oh yeah, and that was they had that at the Madison Square Garden where they showed the Ali Inoki fight on a closed circuit, and they had the live wrestling show which they also showed on closed circuit. So it was, you know, it was an event. It was a really an event.
That was a huge event. People don't realize, but I also like Bob Backlund. That was later years. I remember people going to that match and people was crying because Iron Sheik caught Bob Backlund in that camel clutch and he submitted, and that would made Hulk Hogan a superstar because he beat Iron Sheik and people, they ate it up. They loved it.
Let me tell you a little story about that match. We were talking about the territories. Well, Hulk Hogan came from the AWA, which was run by Vern Gagne out of Minnesota, and he was being wooed in by Vince McMahon, and he was going to set to wrestle the Iron Sheik for the title, and Vern Gagne, who also trained the Iron Sheik, he was a Olympic wrestler from Iran. Seriously, real good wrestler, tremendous wrestler. He was going to give him $100,000 to break Hulk Hogan's leg. And he wouldn't do it, and so Hulk Hogan won the title. Sheik did the job, but he was offered $100,000 to break his leg, and he could have done it. He could have snapped it like we snap a chicken bone. And I just want to let you know about that.
Wow, awesome, man. I mean, wrestling, and it was interesting because I'm gonna tell you a little story. In the summer of 1977, my father's family is from Suffolk, Virginia, so I went down there during the summer. And and everybody was running. We was playing football, and everybody was running the house. So they was like, wrestling get ready to come on. So I'm preparing myself to see Mil Mascaras and Dick the Bulldog Brower. And I seen all these wrestlers I never heard of. They said, you never heard of Ric Flair? I'm like, nah. You know, and other wrestlers. What's that black wrestler? He used to do the freight train.
Junkyard Dog.
No, it was somebody else. What's his name, Lawrence?
Rufus Jones.
I forgot his name, man. He was a great wrestler. But then when we had cable in Paterson, New Jersey, That's when they put on Ted Turner had a TBS. That's when I was familiar with Southern wrestling. We used to call it down south wrestling. And my favorite wrestler from down there was a guy by the name of Terry Taylor. Boy, can he wrestle!
Oh yeah.
Woo,
Terry
man,
Taylor,
he could wrestle.
the,
Oh
the,
my god!
the Red Rooster. That's
Yeah,
that's what I
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
about.
Oh, yeah, I remember him, the Red Rooster. Yeah.
Yeah.
He
Okay.
developed that character. I didn't like the character, but
Neither
and
did he.
the Rock and Roll Express too. I like
Oh yeah, I remember them. I remember them.
because you had Starcade and you had the Great American Bash. Great.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I used to buy the magazines when I was in high school, when I was in college back in the early '70s, and people thought I was nuts. You see the covers of these magazines with somebody like Abdullah the Butcher with his head busted wide open, covered with blood, and then, you read this stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, this is great. This is wrestling. You know, before long, these guys were going to the matches with me. But anyway, you know, I was reading all the different federations, and I only saw New York wrestling, like Curtis was saying. All I saw was the WWF and NWA, AWA, WCCW. So I was familiar with these guys, and then when I started catching different federations putting their shows on cable, I knew what was going on, and I was familiar with him, but a lot of people had no idea. Ric Flair, the guy won the title like 8 times, and people, who's he? Who's Ric Flair? No, he's bigger than Hulk Hogan in some parts of the country. But anyway, that's my experience on federations. It was.
I used to love the promos that the Four Horsemen used to do, and when they was battling with Lex Luger, and Ric Flair called him a greased up muscle-headed punk.
Yeah. Hey, yeah. Speaking of promos, hey, salute to Mo Boxing and Super Chat. But what's some of you guys' favorite promos? I know Kurt just talked about Four Horsemen. What y'all got? There's a lot of them too. A lot of good promos.
Sure was. Randy Macho Man Savage was an expert
Yeah.
at promos. He was an expert, and that's the one. The one before WrestleMania was great. And not to be off topic, but Savage and Steamboat WrestleMania 3 was the best match I've ever seen in my life.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's when they were having wars back then. I remember when they had a pay-per-view WWF show, and they had a free WCW show on the same Sunday afternoon. And when wrestlers, when big events like that go head to head, and the WCW is showing theirs for free, and I think they had I think it was Ricky the Dragon. He won the title from Ric Flair. Fantastic wrestling, and it really it put the WCW ahead of the WWF. I thought they were going to take them over.
I know what you're talking about too. The Chi-Town Rumble, something like that. I think Ricky Steamboat had on like the green tights.
Yeah.
And like I remember that, man. Yeah, they used to go head to head because Vince McMahon was trying to keep them off of pay-per-view. You know what I'm saying? I went back and did my research. He tried to keep them off of pay-per-view. That's why you remember they was doing Starcade Thanksgiving time. So he came up with Survivor Series.
Yep.
It ran on USA Network, and they was going head to head, man. So yeah, man, I'm with y'all. I remember that.
I mean, WrestleMania 3 was my favorite WrestleMania, but the Great American Bash, all of them, and the Starcades was masterpieces, man. The steel cage matches and the Von Erich.
You know War Games?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the Von Erich family is very similar to the Kennedy family. They was because both of those families, they were suffering tragedy after tragedy after tragedy, man. The Von Erichs, they could wrestle.
Oh yes, they could. Oh man.
Oh yeah, it's heartbreaking. If somebody ever want to do some reading on there, do a little research. The Von Erich story will break your heart.
I read their book.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, yeah. There. Kerry Von Erich was in Providence when he was with the WWE, and a friend of mine was the bartender at the Holiday Inn next door, and he'd call me up, and whenever somebody was around, and he'd always hook up with him because this guy was room service. He always had a bag of weed in his pocket. He called me up, and he says, "Hey, come on up here, come up to I forget the room he said to come up to, but anyway, I went up there, Junkyard Dog and Kerry Von Erich were in there, and there was so much smoke in that room. You could just about get through there. And this is before they're going into the ring. It's just one of them little stories, a little old school wrestling talk. And man, the Junkyard Dog was a real partier. He was an athlete. Those guys would get in a car and go from town to town. They'd be on the road 250 days a year. If that's not an athlete, I don't know what is. They're the rock star.
Real quick. Hey, Coco, go in and come back out. You're not connecting, bro. Go ahead, Bruce.
Where was I? Where was my train of thought? Oh yeah. We're talking about their schedules on the road. They're famous for the stories on the road. Like Brock Lesnar, when he first started, he's 24 years old. He would make sure he rode with the Undertaker and Kane, and he was the guy who would fill the gas tank and run into the 7-Eleven. He said he learned so much from listening to those guys talk, and he'd ask them questions. Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair were nuts. They'd be in Las Vegas in 90-degree heat with fur coats on, seeing who could outdrink each other in the bars, tearing up the casinos. I mean, these guys lived like rock stars.
Mm-hmm.
They were rock stars with muscles, basically. That's what they were. And in fact, when Rock got involved with wrestling, remember that when Cyndi Lauper came in with
I do.
MTV was all about wrestling. Wrestling was so hot back then. It was everybody. The guys in the Rolexes and the BMWs were going to wrestling. It was nothing for a while. It was cool to be a wrestling fan instead of people.
It transcended race. It transcended age, gender, religion. Everybody was a hardcore wrestling fan, man. Ric Flair, when I got a hold of Ric Flair, when I saw him, man, I fell in love with Ric Flair, man. The bragging of the Gator shoes and the custom-made suits and the Rolex watches. It was great, man. And, Barry Windham and, but like Lawrence said, I liked it at Four Horsemen, man. But they were such great technical wrestlers, Arn Anderson and all of them, man. Tully Blanchard and Barry Windham.
Barry Windham was his father was Blackjack Mulligan. So he was weaned on wrestling. From day one, he was destined to be a wrestler. So I mean, that guy could get out of could wake up from a sound nap and give you a body slam. It was ingrained in him. And all those guys, there's so many second generational wrestlers and third generational wrestlers. People who scoff at those guys. I can't even talk to them, because it's not, you watch that stuff, you believe. How can you?
Well, it was different back then. They were more athletic. Well, not it was the script was different, but what they did was unbelievable. The strength and the athleticism that they had, man. They're athletic now, but it was better. It was authentic, more authentic. That's the word I'm looking for. Like Mil Mascaras, he can counter any move. And when you ripped off his mask, he had another one on and another one. Unbelievable, man.
Did you know Mil Mascaras, when he wrestled at Madison Square Garden, there was a long-standing law that wrestlers couldn't wrestle with masks on, because I think 20 years ago or so there was a riot because a wrestler had a mask on. Anyway, it was in the books, and they lifted that just because of Mil Mascaras. He was so popular. Other wrestlers had to cut the face off the mask. They wear the hood, but their face was visible.
Yeah, you remember Ernie Ladd with the big thumb? The big cat Ernie Ladd.
Oh, yeah. I remember the promo he did. He was coming to this city near where I live called Worcester, and he'd say, "I'm gonna get to that hog town of Worcester, and I'm going to put these 18-inch boots down the throat of that Bruno Sammartino." I mean, Ernie Ladd was a trip. He was unbelievable. With that thumb, he was a sympathy. You look for the sympathy. The thumb was aching, and bang, go right in the throat of the opponent. Oh, man.
wrestling was great, man. I mean, like I said, Ric Flair, you know, he has so much swag, as the kids call it now, and personality, man. You know, he was unbelievable. He put wrestling on his back, and plus he could wrestle, plus he had personality, the promos, you know. I remember he called the wrestler's wife, she had the face of a Labrador Retriever. Remember that? I forgot what we talked about. Man, I was on the floor with
The thing about Ric Flair, you know, wrestling was always the good guy, and you know, the face, the good guy, and the heel, the bad guy. And Ric Flair, he transcended that. He was the bad guy who everybody liked. Everybody clapped for him. Everybody watched where he went. You know, Ric Flair was an amazing athlete. And the other night when I turned it on, Ric Flair was still in there walking his daughter to the ring, and he's still in the story because he turned on his daughter, pulled her leg, and she got pinned, and he left with some other blonde bimbo, and it was I mean, the guy's 70 years old and he's still doing it strong. God bless him. That's all I can say, man.
It's
yes, sir. Go ahead, LeVar.
Guys have their chemistry in the ring, because when it came to Ricky Steamboat and Ric Flair, you would think that they were enemies in real life, but then after a show, you can catch those guys, you know, out at a restaurant eating together, and they're best of friends. So wrestling back then, the chemistry was amazing, really amazing. I don't know how y'all feel about it, but I really thought it was amazing. The type of show.
I agree with you. I think the more, and go along with that, the psychology of a match back in the day, because they can sell it to you. Like Jake the Snake was probably the best at that. You know how you remember the angle he had where he got blinded by the perfume by Rick Martel, and he was playing to the crowd, and you know what I'm saying, he had the glass eye, and he ended up DDTing my man. But the psychology that he had and the chemistry, like you said, LeVar, it was so different back in the day. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, you know, the most intense chemistry I ever saw was Bret Hart when he turned on his brother Owen Hart, and he did a series of matches. And you want to talk about hold for hold, no blotches, no mistakes, crisp, all definite. I mean, they were smacking each other around. And these are two brothers. They were doing what they were doing in the backyard since they were 8 years old. And I don't know if you ever caught that, but that's professional wrestling at its absolute finest. You watch a match between those two.
Absolutely.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. But what's the guy that used to wear the college wrestling uniform and used to shake your hand? What's his name?
Yeah, Rick Steiner
and Mike Rotundo, IRS,
Mike Rotundo. Yep.
Mike Rotundo. Yep.
The varsity squad. I want to say Kevin Sullivan was in there for a second.
Yeah, he was. He was the leader.
Okay. Yeah,
they could wrestle, man. You know, and like LeVar said, chemistry. Because I remember in the Jersey Turnpike, Iron Sheik and Hacksaw Jim Duggan, they was in a car together.
I remember that.
Oh, that's what blew kayfabe apart right there. That made Vince so mad. They got busted for weed and coke, and the Iron Sheik is you ever see him on Howard Stern? He'll make you laugh for hours. He is just so funny. He plays the game 100%. Vince said, Sheiky, I got some bad news. Your drug test came up positive. He said, oh, yes, positive. He's thumb up. No, positive's not good, Sheiky. Positive's not good. And I can imagine that going on. He said, go ahead.
Oh, man.
But we're talking about that incident under the bridge there, Curtis.
Yeah.
That was what else you hear about that? Anything?
No, probably. I probably forgot because it was big news, man.
Oh yeah. I made the paper.
We always talking about it, me and my friends, and because we used to be wrestling fanatics, man. You know, Hulk Hogan, Paul Orndorff, and Kurt Hennig, and you know, you can go on and on. Mr. Valentine. Remember, I know he remembers Bruce, Johnny Powers, the Power Lock.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the Power Lock. You know, those guys also wrestled a lot up in northern New York, and I think it was the WPA or something up there. But all the guys from WWE, they'd switch off. They'd come in, they'd wrestle a dozen for 12 weeks. They'd go to another federation. Johnny Valentine, he was a hardcore man. He was like a piece of steel in there. I saw him wrestle a few times, and it's just how raw these guys are, and the punches they can take in the face night after night. You know, boxers are one thing because it's different, you know, obviously, and you know, wrestlers punch, they don't hit you full blast, but they have to make it look real. And there's no glove on there, and you got to have a smack when you hit somebody. You know, if you don't take a good punch, Vince will tell you to go home.
Yep. And another wrestler that I used to like, man, he had like fast twitch muscles and a lot of torque. Ron Simmons.
Oh yeah,
Mr. Florida State.
Yep, Ron Simmons.
Well, Ron Simmons was the first black champion. He beat Vader in the NWA. I think it was back in the 80s. And Ron Simmons, he was unbelievable. He had the muscle. He had a commanding presence. And you know, it was too bad when he came to the WWE. He was a comedian. It was funny, you know, him and Bradshaw with the collection agency and always playing cards and drinking.
I remember Ron Simmons and Bush Reed was tag team partners.
Oh yeah.
And they,
what was their name again? Harlem Heat or something?
No, they was Doom.
Right.
And
Okay.
Teddy Long was their manager.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. I remember that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they came in masked.
They came in there wearing masks, and I think it's the Steiner brothers or something like that. And that's when their faces got revealed.
Yep.
And we can't leave out the Road Warriors.
Oh yeah, Hawking Animal.
They were huge.
Paul Ellering.
Paul,
yeah.
His daughter is wrestling. His daughter Rachel wrestles. You see her once in a while.
Okay.
You know, it's amazing how they're, you know, it's in their blood.
It's in their blood, right?
You see, Flying Brian Pillman's son wrestles. Brian Pillman Jr.
I used to like him too, Flying Brian, man.
Yeah, he was an athlete. He was Cincinnati Bengals, and he was actually a lineman too. And he slimmed himself down and became a wrestler.
Yeah,
I used to like the DiMartino brothers too. They was good. And who else? I'm missing somebody that was really good. I remember Stan the Man stage that. Remember he gave you the heart punch?
Oh
yeah. I remember that. We used to do that on each other.
Well, I remember when Stan beat Pedro Morales for the title, man. He only held the title for about 7 days, and Bruno Sammartino beat him for the beginning of his second reign. But Stan had that heart punch, and I don't know how those guys survived that. You watch that on TV, and it's like whack right to the freaking heart. Hey.
Y'all remember when before he was Stone Cold, he was stunning Steve Austin with
yeah.
Well, him and Brian Pillman were the Hollywood Blondes, I think they were called.
They were the Hollywood Blondes, yeah.
I remember Stone Cold. He was a TV champion. He was a TV champion, I think, in WCW. And I guess they didn't think he had anything. Here's with the y'all remember the Dangerous Alliance with Paulie Dangerously. He had Rick Rude in there, Arn Anderson, Stunner Steve Austin, and Medusa. That was his stable. Y'all remember that shit?
I remember that.
WCW? Yeah.
I'm sure if I think back, I could remember it. It's in there.
But you know, wrestlers like Dusty Rhodes or Cornerstone are wrestling in Jerry Lawler, the King, Jerry Lawler.
Yeah.
Man, they wrestled for so long, man. Old school wrestlers.
Oh yeah.
Nick Botwinkle too. You remember Nick Botwinkle? He wrestled when he was like damn near 60 years old.
Nick Botwinkle, wow.
Harley Race.
Harley Race.
Man, Harley Race. He had those tattoos. Imagine getting like a big eagle tattooed on your forearm back then, man. Harley was he was a wrestler's wrestler.
He sure was. Harley Race. Wow.
I saw Holly go through tables. I've seen him bloodied from head to toe. He's probably the toughest son of a bitch that I've ever seen wrestling. I think if it all came down to it, Holly would be the guy that I'd want to stay away from. And they also say Haku there.
Oh yeah,
They say he's one of the baddest son of a bitches around. There's stories about him biting people's noses off in nightclubs, and he was nobody messed with him. Even Andre the Giant wouldn't mess with him.
AWA. He said nobody watched the AWA. I remember AWA. They had I remember the Rockers started there. They was wrestling Buddy Love. Not Buddy Love, Buddy Rose and
Buddy Rose.
You remember? And they had Sergeant Slaughter was there. Jimmy Snuka.
Oh, that's where Shawn Michaels got started.
Yeah.
Him and Marty Jannetty, the Midnight Rockers, man. They were.
They used to come on ESPN when I got out of school.
Yeah.
They used to come on ESPN. I remember that.
Yeah, I remember when on ESPN they tried to revive it. Harlem Heat was there. I think Bruno was one of the announcers. Bruno Sammartino's son wrestled. His son eventually ended up having a heart attack. They said it was a steroid related. He's still alive, thank God, but he had to retire at an early age. Man, there's so many stories, and
a lot of steroids messed up a lot of wrestlers, man. To be honest. They start dying off, man. I knew something was wrong. I'm like, what happened? The respiratory problems and all kinds of stuff, man. I'm like, wow. It's sad because you wanted an edge. You wanted that physique, like Lex Luger, man. Lex Luger had a beautiful physique. He couldn't wrestle that good, but he was known for his physique.
Well, you see what he looks like now? That he had a stroke or something, but he's only about 150 pounds. I saw him on one of those pawn shops shows, and he was selling his old robe, and it looked like he was carrying a tent in there.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, I don't like to see, people you looked up to and entertain you, like that, like boxers and wrestlers, man. They gotta sell off their old stuff and auction it off, man.
Oh, and this guy was trying to chisel him down till it was sad. It was sad.
Wow.
And you want to know another person that should get credit to? Bobby Eaton and the Midnight Express.
Oh yeah, yep.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that was a good group.
Yeah, speak on that because Bobby Eaton is underrated, bro. Speak on him.
Well, Jim Cornette, you can see his podcast. He does a weekly podcast, and he's hilarious. He doesn't hold anything back. He spill the beans about everything. He'll tell you some stories like we're sitting here, but this is like sitting here with with somebody who was one of the boys.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have personality, then you're gonna go far.
Absolutely. I agree with that one. I really do.
I like that tag team. Y'all remember the tag team of the 80s? The Killer Bees.
Yeah.
The Rougeau brothers. The Islanders. There was a bunch of them in WWF.
Yeah.
The Hart Foundation.
How about the Samoans, man? The whole generations of them.
Yeah. Yeah, they got Yeah.
The British Bulldogs, remember them?
Yeah.
Oh man, he talk about abusing steroids, man.
Somebody in the chat said the Fabulous Freebirds. I remember them too.
Yeah. Bam Bam Terry Gordy. That was my dude. I liked him, bro. I liked him.
Yeah.
The Freebirds. Yeah, Black Star. Yeah. Bam Bam Terry Gordy, my guy, yo. I used to like watching him.
Wrestling was fire at one point.
Yeah. Well, Michael Hayes, he's big in the WWE. He's like one of the executive vice presidents. And you go online and look up some of the stories. Like they had this one story called the big plane, the jet plane ride where they all got so bombed in there, and Vince was in there too. Brock Lesnar, Mr. Perfect. They started wrestling each other for real because Vince always liked to see if you could take his best move, they say, and they were bombed. And some of these stories are really, really unbelievable. The stuff that they did and got away with. These guys worked hard. They were great actors, but they partied like you would not believe. They, big drug abusers, alcoholics. So many of them died so young. It's unbelievable. You see this? Oh, I used to watch him. He's dead. He's gone. And it's all in their early 40s. There, it's a rough profession.
It
Yeah,
is.
like you said, the mantra was sex, drugs, and rock and roll, to say the least. And they was wrestlers, like you said. Rock stars was muscles, but I remember one of the funniest wrestlers was the Honky Tonk Man, and I remember when he was talking about, because people didn't like it because he was like trying to make fun of Elvis Presley. That's basically what it was, and he was like, I went to Gracie Mansion, and the dishes wasn't washed, and the grass need cut, and then oh man, I was rolling, man. Talk about Elvis Presley house, man.
And he never break character either.
Nope.
Never. I never saw him break. Now he's still involved in wrestling. I think he's running some independent federation here in New England somewhere, because once in a while you see him on the internet, and he'll tell you stories too. He's another one. His name is Wayne Ferris, and he's got a very, very interesting podcast, I guess it would call it. But he's on there quite a bit.
Yeah, man.
You know, another technical wrestler too, Dean Malenko. I used to like Dean Malenko when he was with WCW.
The man of 1,000 moves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
They had a group too called like the Radicals. It was him and Saturn, Chris Benoit, and I think Eddie Guerrero was in there. I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I used to like Don Morocco too. That dude was cut up.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, I used to watch a lot. I used to go to the Providence Civic Center, and there'd be matches there maybe once every 2 or 3 months. And we used to go sit up in the bar there called the Royal Roost. 10,000 people below us, and only maybe 50 people in the bar because people just didn't know about it. And I was up there one night. It was Superstar Billy Graham against Carlos Rocha, and Carlos Rocha has got the Portuguese flag. Anyway, there was a hot-looking blonde sitting up there. So, me and my boys, we sat next to her. She was very friendly. She started buying us a couple of rounds. And anyway, she told us she was Superstar Billy Graham's girlfriend. And we're watching the match, and something happened, but she said, the match is going to be over in 2 minutes. I got to go. Nice meeting you guys. Sure enough, 2 minutes later, the match was over, and we were like, wow, that was something. But, it's just another little wrestling story I'd like to share with you. Because Superstar Billy Graham was talk about huge athletes. I think he was the first one who really was outstanding in the muscular department.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What about managers, yo? What was y'all favorite manager? Like talk about. I love Bobby the Brain Heenan though. I know he like the best one, but I love him.
Bobby the Brain would get his feet wet too. I've seen Bobby the Brain get tossed over the ring, the ropes, with his loafers on, and that's. You're talking about 7 or 8 feet to the cement floor. Back then, they didn't have the padding around it like they do now. And Bobby the Brain, he was a pretty good wrestler in his day too. I saw him wrestle a few times.
I like Captain Lou Albano.
Oh,
yeah. I remember him.
That was a good one.
Y'all remember Slick?
Yep.
Yeah, Doctrine of Style. That was my guy too.
I just read something about him recently. I can't remember what it was. Something about the old Slickster.
There's a lot of good managers. Jimmy Hart was good. I remember Jimmy Valiant.
Brother Love.
James E. Cornette. There's a lot of them, bro.
Freddie Blassie.
Yeah.
Freddie's the guy who was the first manager of Hulk Hogan.
What's the other one's name? The Grand Wizard.
The Grand, yeah, he overdosed in Japan. Another one.
Percy Pringle.
Percy Pringle. Percy Pringle was Paul Bearer.
Paul Bearer. What about what's the other one? The one with the bald head. He always had a stable of bad guys.
Oliver Humperdinck.
Yeah, I remember him. No, he had a bald. I can't think of his name, but he was
Cannon.
No, he was in WCCW. I mean, yeah, he used to be with the Brunerics. He was like the.
Yeah, man. I can't think of his name. Mustache and a bald head.
I got it. Gary Hart.
Yes, Gary Hart.
JJ Dillon. Yeah.
And what's the other one that used to wear the suits with the money signs on them?
Ted DiBiase.
No, the manager.
Oh, the manager. Virgil.
Who managed the Hart Foundation? What was his name?
Oh, Jimmy Hart.
Jimmy Hart.
Yeah, Jimmy Hart.
And Mr. Fuji. That's a good one.
Mr. Fuji owned a bar in a city, Fall River, which is just across the bay. I'm looking at Fall River right now. And
Wow.
Mr. Fuji owned a bar there. When they wrestled here, they'd go to a place called Custy's, which is out of business now. But anyway, it was an all-you-can-eat seafood buffet where they had lobsters, and I think it was about $12 back then. And Andre the Giant made history there. He wiped out the buffet. And anyway, the wrestlers would go there, and then they'd go to Fuji's bar, and the guys that I hung with knew him, and we'd go there, we'd talk to him. Andre the Giant, you'd never seen anybody in your life that could drink like him, and he would make a bottle of beer look like a little baby bottle. Suck him down, one sip, gone, another one. And he didn't even show it. The night I was drinking with him, he must have drank a case of Heineken. And he was sober as a judge, as far as I could see. Amazing story there, man. Fuji was a very, very slick businessman too. He didn't let anything get by him.
Mr. Fuji.
Mm-hmm.
You said Tony Atlas, man. You remember him?
Woo. Yeah. Tony Atlas still lives up here in Maine, and he's still active in the local promotions up here, the independents, and there's all kind of stories about him that you can see now. Where it's a shame how he's bottomed out so much. He was looking for his last $200 to put on a show. He had to pay for a deposit because he was another one who was big time rock star back then. He was. I saw him in New York City when I was there. He was walking around with a flaming yellow jumpsuit on. And I said, Tony. And he turned, oh, yeah. He had to be messed up, but he stood out. He was huge, 270 pounds, solid muscle. You're going to stand out in a crowd, especially when you're wearing a yellow jumpsuit.
Right. I remember he told a story about Bruiser Brody getting stabbed and murdered. I remember that.
Yeah. Jose Gonzalez did that, and he got away with it. He got away with it. Nobody said that. Everybody said they saw nothing, and Tony Atlas carried him to the ambulance. There was a 2-hour wait because there was such a congestion of traffic. Because the Puerto Ricans, they are as big a wrestling fans as anywhere in the world. They have outdoor stadiums, and they don't have the infrastructure to contain it. So the ambulance couldn't get to Bruiser Brody. They said if he had gotten to the hospital faster, he would have lived. But that was a real tragic story, and it just showed you a very ugly side of wrestling.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of them guys. Can you tell me a positive story? Like who kept their money? Because a lot of them died broke and destitute, man. I mean, did anybody keep their money, Bruce?
Man, I would really have to think about that. Bruno Sammartino, he lived pretty well because he was morally straight. And
how about Ric Flair?
Yeah, well, Ric Flair right now is living pretty well, but I understand he's just another divorce, which he's probably got. I think he has 5 or 6 of them now. So Ric Flair lives paycheck to paycheck, but he still lives the high life.
I think these new age, the new generation of wrestlers are probably living better, especially like The Rock, some of.
Yeah, those are
the Attitude Era.
That's a success story, The Rock. It's funny, Curtis, because you really just can't think of that many. It's almost as sad as the world of boxing.
But then again, those wrestlers back in the day, they weren't. I don't think they were, making the money that the wrestlers are making now.
Well, The Rock got rich because of his acting. If you look up his net worth, you'll be shocked. He has hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah. Rock is wealthy.
I think of these guys today, they got guaranteed contracts. And back in the day, they had to make their money on the road, you know what I'm saying, going to city every night, like 350 some days out of the year. You know what I'm saying? That's crazy. Crazy.
Well, you know how popular Hulk Hogan got? When he did Rocky 3, I think he got 15,000. 2 years later, when he did WrestleMania 7, I think he got $1 million plus. So that shows you how popular he went from 15,000 and doing a movie to 1 million headlining a wrestling show.
Yeah, it worked out for Hulk really well, man. You know,
Yeah.
when he took on Andre the Giant, that match was so huge, man. I went to the Capitol Theater. Instead of seeing a fight, I saw a wrestling match. You know, it was packed to the rafters, man. It was standing room only. And you know, when Hulk pinned Andre the Giant, the crowd was into a frenzy, man.
Curtis, you remember the preliminary to Antonio Inoki and Muhammad Ali?
I can't tell you that I did. I forgot. I probably
It was Andre the Giant and Chuck Wepner.
forgot.
And Andre the Giant gave him a headbutt because Wepner was whacking him with rabbit punches. And you know, it was an unscripted fight, like Ali and Inoki was. But this fight was actually more interesting. Wepner was nailing him behind the head with rabbit punches. Andre was getting real mad, and Andre nailed him with a headbutt, sent him over the ring, and Chuck Wepner didn't get back in. That I'm surprised isn't in every boxing isn't carved out in boxing history, because it was hilarious and it was real. And Chuck Wepner, he was a great guy.
Yeah, he owned the liquor store not too far away from me.
Bayonne, New Jersey.
Yep, Bayonne. Yep,
Bayonne. Sorry.
I'm right there. I'm not too far. You know, because between that is the IBF headquarters. I'm like down the street from the IBF headquarters. But Chuck Wepner is a nice guy. He's funny guy. Tell you stories about Ali and stuff, man. You know, some people just got a real big personality, man. You can walk up to him and talk to him.
Yo, that's crazy, yo. Rocky stole everything from Chuck Wepner. The Ali thing, the wrestling thing. Think about it. Damn.
Well, they're on the same card together. So I
That's
think Ali. Well, I don't know who put that card together. Do you know who promoted that card, Kurt? The Ali Inoki, the first pay-per-view.
Man, I had it in my head. I had it in my head because I remember looking at the poster and seeing the production company.
Yep. It was a rock producer, I think.
I'll tell you, man. But I forgot.
Okay.
I was 10 years old when that happened. I can't believe. I was about 10 years old.
That was 1976.
Mm-hmm.
I was just I think I was about 20. I was bopping around the city of Boston, and they had some great matches there at the Boston Garden. I saw a Russian chain match, because these guys would put on some shows for you. It was Ivan Koloff and Bruno Sammartino. And I was sitting there with my friends in the fourth row. We were smoking weed. Nobody cared back then. They said it was going to be legal. Jimmy Carter was president, and everything was all crazy. But anyway, Bruno Sammartino was whacking him across the back with that steel chain, and this was a chain like you would tow a car out of a ditch with. These guys they put on a show, and the blood was real. I was sitting there at ringside. I'm sure they cut themselves open. I never saw them do that, but the blood was so real. Boston Garden was crazy. It would always sell out. You'd have 12,000 screaming fans, and the best matches, because they'd have wrestling would only be on Saturday afternoons back then, and wrestling on television was a 1 hour show, and it was basically a promo to get you to go to the live events, because that's where they made their money. And people couldn't wait to go to the Boston Garden. You'd get on the subway on the Green Line that I used to live, and you'd see people on there, and you knew right away, those are wrestling fans. Something about a wrestling fan, a real diehard, you can pick them out and take you right to the Boston Garden. You'd see the matches, get back on, go home. Fantastic way to spend a Saturday night.
It was great, man. I used to pay $4 to see wrestling matches at the Armory in Patterson, New Jersey. $4.
Man.
And the Armory was 2 blocks away from my house, so we would walk there and see Dick the Bulldog Brower or something like that, and then you just walk home and talk about the matches. So just think, we had Evel Knievel, Bruce Lee, wrestling and boxing. It's great. It's great.
Man,
Yeah.
It was special, man.
he had it all.
Mhm. Yes, we did. I remember that. I remember the Evil Knievel jumping over Snake River Canyon. That was right around the Ali George Foreman fight, and it was a pay-per-view. And I remember them arguing over the dates, and the jump over Snake River Canyon was a big farce. Anyway, it was the Rocket Man. I don't know if any of you guys remember that,
Mm-hmm.
but the Ali and Foreman fight, was history. And I remember the pay-per-views back then were few and far between, and that date they were fighting for. But yeah, Curtis, that was the generation, man. Evil Knievel and Muhammad Ali.
Yep. But put it in perspective, when you can do 1.4 billion, and it's a boxer and a wrestler, and then do $1 billion, a boxer versus a boxer, and some of your fights you do 300 to 400 million. That pay-per-view of today falls in comparison back then, but it was Ali. But anyway, get back to wrestling. It was just growing up, man. Magazines was big, the library was big, the boys club was big in the neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way I came up. So we used to practice wrestling moves on each other, and whoever blurted out your favorite wrestler first, that's who he was. Like people would be like, Mil Mascaras. I'm Mil Mascaras, used to fight over that.
Well,
when
I was a kid, my dad bought us boxing gloves, and we boxed in the yard, but that hurt. I mean, we wrestled, that was cool. So we were backyard wrestlers. Boxing, we kind of saved that till we got a little older, because you don't you don't play boxing. We all know that. Wrestling, you can play. And man, we did.
Yeah, we used to have tag team partners. We used to do the demolition move. I used to get on like on like a little tree or something and come off the top rope. Yeah, I remember all that. Yo.
Oh, dude, everything, man. I perfected a flying drop kick. It took me so long to do it, man.
Man.
And for me, I was on my cousins and stuff. I'll pretend like I'm Jake the Snake Roberts, and I just hand out DDTs all day.
Oh yeah.
But you heard. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, man. I was just gonna say I came from four brothers, and so wrestling was at the drop of a dime. You want to have a bout? Yeah, let's go, bang. Go ahead, Curtis. I'm sorry, man.
No, that's okay. You had tragedies that people used to come back and tell you. You heard about so-and-so little brother? He tried to move and his neck got broke or his arm got broke. Now I used to hear stories, because wrestling was so popular. It was a move that went wrong, because if you come down awkward on somebody's neck or arm, you was going to break it.
Yeah.
But, that was wrestling, man. But, I'm going to get off, man, because I'm going to get my wife is cooking and I'm going to get ready to eat and just chill out for the rest of the night, man. But it was a pleasure talking to you guys, man, about wrestling, man. Bring back a lot of memories, man. It really does, man. But it was a pleasure talking, change the pace, boxing. Boxing.
It is.
Yeah, it's good to finally talk to you too, Curtis.
Same.
Yeah, bro, anytime. Yeah, definitely. LeVar, and it was always a pleasure, Lawrence. But I'm gonna listen to you guys while I'm eating, man. I'll check you guys out.
All right, Kurt. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Peace,
Yes,
brother.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Ultimate Warrior.
D Hodges is
Ultimate
gonna get on
Warrior,
us because
man.
we're not talking about Mick Foley.
Oh yeah. I see D Hodges.
Didn't mean to cut in on you.
He want to talk about Mick Foley, man. I remember Mick Foley.
Mick Foley is a true anomaly in wrestling. He is a extremely intelligent person, and he can be extremely crazy and violent. Mick Foley is a true class act. My wife loves Mick Foley. Mick Foley would put his body on the line.
Oh
He
yeah.
didn't care about your body, let alone his. He was a true showman. Some of the things he did when he got tossed off that cage by the Undertaker, I thought he was going to I thought he was dead. And then the second time when he went through the cage, his tooth was sticking through the bottom of his lip. That is a tough individual.
Hardcore king.
He's true hardcore king.
And he loved the business, man, because he started off wrestling in his backyard, and he became an enhancement talent in the AWA and the WWF, and then he just kept sticking with it. When he went to Japan, I remember hearing the story. He just was doing so much crazy stuff over there, and they brought that over here. You know what I'm saying? I remember his wrestling matches with Vader and all those guys in WCW. Yeah,
Mhm.
Well,
yeah, I remember
he lost an ear in the ring.
with Vader, I believe.
Yeah. In Japan, I think with Vader. Yeah, and he still continued wrestling.
So yeah, he loved the business though.
He does, and you read his books, or you even see his nightclub act, and you see the other side of him, and just the way that he speaks, and the humor that he has, it's priceless. It's definitely worth checking out. Mick Foley, and they had the show on. It was on cable for a while about his family. His daughter was getting into wrestling, and his wife, and they talked about the match. I'll never forget this match he had with The Rock. It was a I Quit match, and The Rock ended up handcuffing him behind his back and took it out with a steel chair, and his kids were at ringside, and Mick was so sorry that he did that in front of his kids, because his wife and his kids were crying, and Mick, ever the professional, he took the beating like a man, and he even said The Rock hit him a little too hard a few times. That match was is a standout, probably one of the top 10 matches. But it's The Rock and Mick Foley in an I Quit match. It was unbelievable.
My man Rob asked me what's the downfall of WCW. I mean, my opinion, I think it was just too many people. It wasn't nobody in charge for one.
Yeah.
Like Bruce said earlier, it wasn't nobody in charge. The wrestler was running the asylum basically, and they was letting, like, I think Kevin Nash was a big part of that going down, because he was like the booker, I think, at the time, and he was just letting everything run wild. He when he beat Goldberg, when Goldberg had so much momentum, it kind of slowed it down, because you remember they was winning the war with WWE, but then after that stuff started slowing down. So I think it was just too many people coming in and trying to, it wasn't no stability. So I think that was a downfall, in my opinion.
You know what I think was the death blow when Hulk Hogan finger tapped Kevin Nash on the chest, and he went down, and Hulk Hogan pinned him for the title.
I remember that.
Oh man, that blew credibility, even wrestling credibility, out of the water. It's like Lawrence was saying, that there was no boss there. Everybody was in charge. Everybody wanted to be in charge. And in the WWE, what Vince McMahon said was law.
Right.
And ultimately, that was that's how they survived.
Right. I agree with both of y'all, and I think money played a part of it too. A lot of the wrestlers were leaving WCW at the time and heading over to the WWE. So you're right.
Before that, they were all heading from the WWE down to WCW, because Ted
Correct.
Turner was giving them had an open pocket. He was like Bret Hart wrote him an incredible check. Hulk Hogan, Nash. Everybody was leaving the WWE, but the WWE with the Undertaker and with Bret Hart, they stuck it out, and they survived on not on the celebrityism of it, but on the athleticism of it, and the wrestling aspect, where all the stars, Rick Rude and Sting and everybody, Miss Elizabeth, they were all down in WCW, but we saw how that worked out.
Right. Yeah. I agree with you, Bruce. And plus, and to me, what helped save WWE was the Attitude Era with The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Because when they were going through all this stuff, the WCW, yes, the gimmicks were starting to get old, and then when Bill Goldberg lost, when that streak ended, that, like what y'all said, that took a toll on them as well, because everybody wanted to see Goldberg, go undefeated as far as possible. So I agree with both of y'all.
Yeah, the Stone Cold thing, and you gotta give credit to Vince McMahon too, because he probably one of the biggest heels in wrestling history. Because when him and Stone Cold was going at it, I remember coming home from school wanting to catch that. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, so they turned it around. They stayed the course. You know what I'm saying? Shawn Michaels too, but Shawn Michaels got hurt, but he passed the ball with with DX when he got hurt, but.
Right.
All those guys stayed the course, and then eventually they just took over because they had a good team. Vince McMahon, Pat Patterson, even though he do his little dirt, we know what he used to do. R.I.P. to him, but it's a lot of they had a staff.
Well, they had a head writer, Vince Russo,
Vince Russo,
and he pretty much controlled the Attitude Era. He wrote all the controversial stuff. He was the head writer, and you can he does a podcast too where he talks about it. He has nothing to do with wrestling now. He just speaks and makes his money doing that. But he was so sharp. He had such a staff underneath him that WCW couldn't compete with that. They couldn't put scripts together and storylines together where WWE was having the love affair there with Mark Henry and Mae Young, the hand baby, stuff like that. That's original. You can't write that stuff, and all those beautiful women that were there, Terry Reynolds, and all the fitness models. So many of them, and they were all beauties, and they attracted a lot of the male viewers too.
That's true.
They kept a lot of the male viewers, and WWE blew them out of the water. Ted Turner, I understood he was glad to sell it to Vince McMahon at a loss. He just wanted out. It was a huge thorn in his side. Yeah. It's a big money pit.
Oh, absolutely. He was done. he was done.
And see the WWE too. They cultivated a lot of their talent. They started on low salaries, whereas the WCW had to pay these guys millions to come over there and get in the ring. WWE was keeping it reasonable, and they pretty much earned their money. Undertaker was he was there for God. I remember when he came on the scene. And he beat Hulk Hogan for the first time when Hulk Hogan lost the title. And Hulk Hogan, I think he's a 6-time WWF champion. This was the first time he lost it. And The Undertaker was big, and he stuck with McMahon. He never went to WCW, and they offered him huge money. He stuck with the small money and the loyalty. And look what it did for him now. You can only imagine if he had jumped ship.
Right. I remember that he beat Hulk Hogan at Survivor Series when Ric Flair put that chair up on there.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember. It's a lot. I remember a lot of stuff like Dusty Rhodes. I remember when he came to WWE with the polka dots and shit.
Oh yeah. What was her name?
Was it Gold?
Sapphire.
That's right. That's right.
Sapphire.
Yes, sir.
That's right. From what I understand, that was a punishment to Dusty Rhodes from him going to WCW.
Yeah,
he had to.
Oh, you're talking about the father? My bad. I thought you were talking about the son.
No, this is the original Dusty.
The American Dream.
Yeah, the American Dream. And he stayed with it too. He ran the what is it? The minor league federation.
Yeah, I remember. I remember they said that you remember Virgil, that's his real name. So the Virgil, the bodyguard, was like a dig at Dusty Rhodes. And then when Virgil went to NWO, the bodyguard, they named him Vincent. And that was a dig at Vince McMahon. Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, you remember the commercials that they had with the grandfather Ted and the old Randy Savage. They were trying to show how old the WCW stars were. Hey, they'll snap into spin. It was hilarious.
The Nacho Man.
Yeah, the Nacho Man. But that was they took the gloves off. That was brutal, man. That was brutal.
Yeah.
And Vince came out on top, and He's 70-year-old and he's still behind the helm over there. He's another Bob Arum, it seems.
Yeah, man.
And the guy survived as many scandals as Donald Trump too.
Oh, man, has he, man? Oh my God, so many. But
Bruce and Lawrence, let me ask y'all a question real quick.
yeah,
Do you when it comes to Chris Benoit, and we know the tragic story of that, do you think there's more to that story than what was betrayed by the media?
I heard a rumor about it. If y'all remember the wrestler Billy Jack Haynes, he did a shoot interview talking about the reason why he did that is because Vince was messing with his wife. But I'm not sure though. He was just saying that. But I think it had to be something else, man. I think the most thing I think was happening. He felt like he was going to lose his spot, and I know he was doing all them drugs and stuff like that. But he loved wrestling so much. Not taking up for him though, because what he did was crazy. I would never approve of that. But I felt like listen to his story. He felt like he was going to lose his spot, so he had to keep going. And he kept pushing the limit, and getting himself knocked out. They told him not to do that headbutt off the top rope. He kept doing it. So I felt like he had pressure on himself. And then when Eddie Guerrero died, I think that was basically the straw that broke the camel's back for real, because that was like the only one that he can talk to that was keeping him in the sport. And then when that happened, he just lost it, bro. In my opinion.
Yeah. No, I think the same thing, because his brain was given to Chris Nowinski, who was a former wrestler,
That's right.
graduate. He created an institute for brain studies of athletes, and they said Chris Benoit, he had the CTE, I think it's called, and his brain was in the condition of an 80-year-old man, and I think the drugs kept him going. We could go to airport, because Vince McMahon said, well, if he had the brain of an 80-year-old man, how did he fly? How did he get around? Drugs work. Drugs do amazing things and get your adrenaline going. But I think he went home and it all just came to a crash. He went nuts. They said there were Bibles laying around his house. He killed his wife first. Then he killed his son Daniel in the basement in his gym, and then he killed himself. And I think it's just a tragic story. I saw Billy Jack Haynes' thing on there, and it makes you think. And I don't know, but
yeah,
we all have our opinions.
Right. Okay.
That was sad though, but he was a good wrestler though. He was a good wrestler. I thought he kind of took Dynamite Kid, kind of wrestled just like him a little bit.
Dynamite Kid was his idol in Canada.
Okay, there you go. There you go.
No, he did the Canadian circuit with him. He was the Dynamite Kid's idol. He went to Japan. I think he was called the something kid. Who knows in the chat room? What was Benoit called in Japan? The Pegasus Kid. Okay, and he wore a blue mask. And he came to the WWE like that, and Vince said, "No, we're not going to do that."
Yeah, that's right. He did. That's right. I remember, Bruce. I remember now. I remember. Yep, he did.
But he had that amazing headbutt, and I used to watch him do that. It was head-on-head contact. He put his hands out, and he absorbed a little bit of the fall. But that move, I see that as his downfall, and I see Rob 87 Nancy Benoit. She was, from what I understand, she was a very lovely person.
Yeah,
she used to be a manager too, right?
She was married to Kevin Sullivan. They called her a woman. She had a gimmick. She was a wrestler, evil. She had the makeup on, walked around with. She was like a sadistic with the chains on, whips and chains, and she was actually married to Kevin Sullivan, and they did a gimmick where she was cheating on Kevin Sullivan with Benoit, and it became real life. Art imitated life, and that was that's how they got together. And they had a son, and the son supposedly had maybe a dwarfism thing where he wasn't growing fast enough. And they said Chris Benoit was getting growth hormone for himself, but he was also using it for his son. Crazy stories that I can't substantiate them, but they make sense. From where I come from, they make sense. I can see the mentality there.
Hey, do y'all know anything about the ECW going down? This was Rob.
Dude, ECW. That's a whole nother show right there, man.
Yeah, man. ECW, unbelievable.
I know it has something to do with money though, Rob 87. Because I know Paul Heyman, he won't pan those guys, and they was trying to hurry up. I heard a story, they was trying to hurry up and get to the bank so their check don't bounce. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes if you make the deadline, you get paid. Sometimes you don't. But he had them guys doing a lot of stuff like hands-on stuff. Like they didn't have like what WWE had, like every agents and stuff like this doing stuff. The wrestlers had to handle stuff like make the flyers and the merchandise and all that shit like that. So yeah.
Oh, they had to sell tickets.
Yeah.
And their matches, they didn't call it Extreme Championship Wrestling for nothing. They had they would stack up tables in the ring. The Dudley boys started there. They had a guy named New Jack who was bail bondsman who had been convicted of manslaughter, done time. This guy was crazy. This guy would never wrestle. Like George Animal Steel had a foreign object, but George was he was funny with it. This New Jack would hurt people. He would draw blood. He wrestled this kid was from Rhode Island too. I can't think of his name, but he did a Ralph crammed in the bus driver gimmick. And his first match was with New Jack. And he told New Jack to bleed him because he didn't know how to do it. And New Jack, all his matches were blood. And he ended up beating this guy up so bad and cutting his head up. He almost bled to death in the ring. He just died a few years ago. And his father said it was because of that match. And ECW was known for that. They had guys falling through triple decker tables, things like Cactus Jack. Yeah, Cactus Jack was there. They were almost like a farm league for WWE, but Vince thought it was too violent, and he kind of closed them down, bought it himself, and closed the business. But ECW, man, if you saw ECW live, even the pay-per-views, that was violence, and wrestling fans, a hardcore wrestling fan couldn't dig it, but some people loved it, and a lot of wrestlers got hurt real bad there. Scaffold match, yep.
They had Sabu.
Terry Funk was there, man.
Terry Funk, the franchise.
It's
the kid named 911.
They would do things like have barbed wire matches where the ring was wrapped with barbed wire, and these guys would get so cut up there, and it was unbelievable how they could do it again in a couple of days. Yeah. Terry Funk was the wackiest. I think he just retired at 70 years old with two knees replaced, a double hip replacement. They said it was amazing that he could even walk, never mind wrestling. That guy would put on a show for you that a 25-year-old kid couldn't put on. Talk about the beautiful violence, the ballet and violence together. Terry Funk, he was unsurpassed. And you being down south, you must have saw a lot of Terry Funk back in the day, because he wrestled a lot with Ric Flair back in the NWA era.
Yes, especially my dad. My dad was able to go to a couple matches, and Terry Funk definitely he was a ruthless man. He didn't care.
He didn't. And he had a brother, Dory Funk Jr., and as a tag team, they were a well-oiled machine. Dory Funk he'd give you a suplex from his knees. He was a top-notch wrestler, and Terry was brutal. And when those two got together, you didn't know whether to shit or go blind. You'd be in a freaking arm bar, and then you'd have your head punched in.
So they're the only two brothers to win the NWA titles, right?
I think the Briscoes might have won it too.
The Briscoes, yeah, you're right.
Briscoes were another amazing wrestling family too back in the day.
Yeah,
They tie you up in knots. You get in a fight with any of those guys in a bar, and you throw that one punch, and then you're a pretzel.
November. Hey, Rob, you remember November to Dismember? I remember those pay-per-views. Dangerously, man. It's wrestling is like it's crazy because as a kid, I just remember. I used to think it was real. I didn't really know until I got older, and then when I got older, I went back and watched everything I watched when I was a kid, and I understood everything. You feel me? So I get a better understanding, like how they call the match. You know what I'm saying? How like when they cut themselves, they go on the outside and they hold their head. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I picked up on all that shit because if it was a kid, I didn't know. I thought, oh, he hit his head on the turnbuckle. Oh, you know what I'm saying? I'm tripping. Like he bleeds, but then when I go back and look at it, oh, that's how he did it. You feel me?
All the tricks and trade.
Yeah.
Oh, they used to bleed a lot, but then back in the 80s when AIDS came out, that they had to stop bleeding, and they used to call it juicing, and they would go in the ring with a razor. They'd have a razor blade in their mouth. They'd tape it up so they could put it in. Hulk Hogan could still do it today. I've seen him do it today, and they were good enough they could pull that out and a couple of shots to the head, and with all the sweat going on, it looked like they poured a can of tomato juice over their head.
Yeah,
I believe it, Bruce.
I saw it. I've seen it, man. It was quite an era. Abdullah the Butcher. I don't know if you remember him.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember him.
Dude,
I was scared of him when I was a kid.
Yeah, me too. Him and Kamala.
Yo, I think he attacked Sting. He came out that damn box or something.
Yeah,
he attacked Sting, bro. I almost cried. You ain't gonna.
he was scary. He was
scared.
I was reading a story about him down in Puerto Rico. And another wrestler was talking about it, and Abdullah was wrestling this young Indian wrestler from India, and he bled the guy so much. After the match was over, the guy was standing in the back, and they said he was white from the loss of blood. And it was Superstar Billy Graham. He said, I thought this guy was going to die, and nobody was helping him or anything. He was there by himself, and I don't know whatever happened to him, but that's how Abdullah the Butcher was. He was brutal, and he those big eyes open, and he was true wrestler. And he's being sued right now because he passed, they said, hepatitis C on to a lot of wrestlers. He's under big lawsuits for that, for all of the blood transfers. And he was found to be hepatitis C positive, and other wrestlers who came up with it, from the tracing, the finger pointed to him, and he's under some big lawsuits now.
Oh, my. Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Me either. Man.
One thing about wrestling, man, like they say on the tube, there's never a dull moment.
Yeah.
You can look at some of these guys and go back with them, and they like Booker T. He robbed a bank. He did 3 years in prison in Texas. He came back, changed his whole life around, got very, very spiritual, and he's a success story. We were just talking to Curtis about it. He's a guy who retired, semi-retired with a lot of money.
Yeah,
a huge ranch down in Texas.
That's what's up right there.
Mm. So there are a few of them, but you got to sit down for a while and think about it, because there's so much happening. All the wrestlers who died, I can't really think of their names now, but you go on the internet.
It's so many, man. It's so many. Before the age of 42. Go ahead, bro.
And I think Kurt hit the nail on the head earlier when he was talking about how, steroids and drugs and stuff has really, killed a lot of, pro wrestlers. So I totally understand, because, they put a lot in their bodies, because they got to go to matches and perform day in and day out. So it's just sad, especially when, Bruce, you talked about Lex Luger earlier. I seen that episode of Pawn Stars where Lex Luger went in there with his robe, and he looks brittle.
Well, back then steroids in wrestling were a thing. They had their own doctor, Dr. George Sakarian,
I remember that.
who was indicted for prescribing steroids, along with Vince McMahon when Hulk Hogan turned state's evidence when he flipped over. And George Sakarian took the fall. He ended up doing time in prison, but it was all part of the show. He would prescribe steroids, painkillers, and these guys were on huge stacks of these drugs. And it came to a crashing halt, which it obviously had to, but it was totally out of hand for a while. You see the records of George Saharian. It's like Elvis Presley's doctor or Michael Jackson's doctor. Same thing. And once they get exposed, it's like, wow. But then, like I said, you think about it, it happens in every entertainment world possible.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
It's crazy though. I remember like you didn't know what was going to happen though. Like as a kid, like you didn't know what was going to happen in WrestleMania and Survivor Series, SummerSlam. Like you didn't know, so you had to wait. You know what I'm saying? Like it was crazy. Like now you can get the information. You already know what's going to happen. But back then you didn't know. You know what I'm saying? You had to wait.
Oh, it was a well scripted show, and there was so much going on. Like when Andre turned on Andre turned on Hulk Hogan, and they're doing that interview, and Andre ripped his shirt off of him, and I'm watching that, and I wasn't a kid, but it was one of those experiences. I was like just saying, like, wow, look at this happening. This is a trip, and these guys are going to wrestle each other. Whoa!
All right.
And the next week there'd be something even crazier. When Roddy Piper cracked Jimmy Snooker in the head with that coconut. Remember that?
Oh, I remember.
Piper's Pit, man. That was a staple. They all went to Piper's Pit. The Undertaker went there, and I remember Jake the Snake was in there with Roddy Piper, and they had all the snakes in there. That was a trip. They always had a little show within wrestling. Like they had Piper's Pit, then they had the flower shop with Adrian Adonis, who was a total trip.
Yeah. The Brother Love show.
LeVar catches him, man. I see him laughing. These guys were total trips.
It just bringing back memories, Bruce, because like I said, it seemed like it was just yesterday. And I love wrestling, and I have nothing against it, but the way where wrestling is now is not like what it was back in the day. So, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I used to watch it. I don't watch it as I used to, but I love going back and watching the blonde hair Sting.
Yeah.
Bash at the beach. So. I miss those days.
Well, you know what it is? The thing about wrestling today, I don't follow it much either, but you can take a month off and go back, and it's the same storyline, same characters, same everything. Once in a while, a face will change here and there, but it's like before. They had the storylines. They came to a conclusion. They climaxed, and they started somewhere else. Now it's like a never-ending. Who's going to beat Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton? It's the same characters, same characters, same script. It's not like it was, but once I hooked up with all you cats on these boxing chats and stuff, I don't really have time for wrestling anymore.
Right. Same.
I mean, I got the WWE Network. I go back and watch. I never watched the new school. I watched like 91. You know what I'm saying? When I was watching when Rick Rude came to WCW, when he attacked Sting, the Clash of the Champions. Y'all remember those events?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I watched that stuff. I still watch it from time to time, but I'm not watching boxing. I'm watching that.
Oh, don't get me wrong, man. I was into wrestling as much as I am into boxing today. And I still get a kick out of it, but I just don't. I'm not religious like I was. Monday Night Raw and Nitro. Yeah. I'd watch one and tape the other, and then stay until 2 in the morning watching the other one. Yeah. I was diehard, and now, like I said, if there's something like this going on and there's a mat and there's wrestling going on, I'll watch this. But fortunately, we're in an age where we can go to sites that stream wrestling matches. I go to this one that has everything. They have it, the live Raw and Nitro, and plus they'll have restreams of it. So if you don't want to miss it, it's there. But it's so repetitive, and it's the same thing. The plot's not interesting, like you're saying. Wrestling's not like it used to be.
Right. It's
And
way different.
It is, man, and I just don't have time for it anymore. I don't. I wish I did, but there's too many things to do.
Saturday Night Main Event was my junk.
Oh, Saturday Night Main Event.
I remember those.
That was kick ass.
Absolutely.
We got a question. He said, what are your top 5 WCW pay-per-view? I think the number one that sticks out to me is the one when Hulk Hogan turned. What's that? Bash at the Beach, 96? That was crazy.
I want to say that. I think that was 96.
96. Let me see. The Starcade, when they had the Battle Bowl, I used to like that. When they pick like a lottery, and then you have a tag team partner, you don't know who he is. He can be a bad guy and a good guy on the same team.
Yep.
I'm surprised Vince didn't keep that idea going. He kept a lot of them, but
the
Battle Bowl, he let that go.
I used to like it's a lot of I used to like the one when Steamboat and Ric Flair fought in '89. This Chi-Town Rumble, that one. It's a couple of more I can't remember. But
You know what I like these days? I like the Royal Rumble.
yeah,
That-
Rumble's good.
That's always good, man. And Brock Lesnar, man, when he comes around, he's another one who writes his own ticket. He's like a Canelo now. He cherry picks him. Comes when he wants to come back, he comes back. But when he first started, man, he won his title from Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan was wrestling for 25 years. Brock Lesnar was 25 years old. That's a gem to put in your pocket right there, man.
Yeah.
Wow. Hey, Lawrence, I think for me, my top one will be Slamboree 1994, Sting versus Vader.
Okay. I used to like because Slamboree, they used to talk about the old wrestlers that have them and showcase them. Is that the one, right? When they talk about the old wrestlers? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, Vader was massive, man, and the stories behind him. And I think he broke a wrestler's back one time doing the power bomb.
Oh, Vader was done wrong by the WWE and Shawn Michaels in particular.
Oh, I agree, Bruce.
What happened was Vader was too stiff, and Shawn didn't like getting hit with those punches, and Shawn was the prima donna. He screamed in Vader's face, and I even heard Vader. There were tears in Vader's eyes. He was that shaken up. He thought it was the fraternity, and it actually was the clique. And Shawn turned on him, and Vader was on thin ice. He never got the pushes that he should have gotten, and he faded into oblivion. And that guy gave blood. He wrestled a match with Stan Hansen in Japan where his eye popped out. And he pushed it back in and continued the match till the end.
Wow.
How do you get tougher than that?
Man, that's crazy, bro.
That's why some of the do you think that's why some of the wrestlers from WCW didn't want to cross over and work with Vince? Is because of the shady business that Vince would be doing?
Oh, absolutely. Vince is got so many enemies. But the thing about Vince is you can be his enemy, but then if the deal's right, he's your buddy again. Vince forgets the past. He thinks about the future. Vince said never again with Hulk Hogan, and a couple of years later, Hogan was back again. So, Vince is a money man. He's a billionaire, and in God we trust, and Vince is the man. Vince controls wrestling, no questions asked.
Yep. It's crazy.
It is, man. It is.
Missy Hyatt. Ooh. Oh my. Go ahead, bro.
I remember Missy Hyatt.
Ooh, I remember her too.
I remember I saw the King of the Ring at the Providence Civic Center, and Bret Hart eventually won it, but Kerry Von Erich was there. The Road Warriors were there. IRS. They were all there. Mr. Perfect. Hercules Hernandez. Fantastic. And it was in the afternoon, and it was buy a ticket and get in. It was an easy way to go because these guys had such a schedule where they wrestled Providence in the afternoon and Boston in the evening. You know, that's a tough life. That's a tough life, but it was great for me. It was, you know, $12 to get in, and this is before they put they had a lot of pay-per-views, and I think it was the last King of the Ring, but it was very memorable. And seeing the Road Warriors, Bret Hart, you know, in a I don't know, 25, 30 feet away from him, there's nothing quite like that. Nothing quite like wrestling. That's why I just I always liked wrestling because it was a beautiful, organized, violent ballet. That's the best way I can describe it.
Yeah, I miss the good old days, especially when the Road Warriors versus Demolition. I'll never forget that match, man. Whew.
I remember that. Yeah, that was like long anticipated because we used to talk about that when the Road Warriors was in NWA. We used to talk about them wrestling.
Well, Demolition was actually the copy of the Road Warriors.
Yeah.
Because the WWF didn't have anything like the Road Warriors, so they got Demolition.
The Powers of Pain. The Powers of Pain was like that too, with the the Barbarian.
Yep.
Even the Rockers, I thought they copied Rock and Roll Express.
Yeah.
There were definitely several of those hot throb teams back then. You know, the Rockers, the Rock and Roll Express, the Midnight Express, the Midnight Rockers. And they were on these independent federations too. They'd have their minor league versions of them. It was funny. They used to come to a VFW near my town every few months, and you'd go see them. And you'd see them get tossed over the ring, landing on the cement. These guys were putting in their dues. There was a wrestler Chris Canyon, who committed suicide. He made it to the WWF, and I saw him in these. And this New England, I think it was called the NEW, New England Pro Wrestling. And a few of my friends were involved in it, and they'd get tryouts. A WWE scout would come down a couple of times a year, check them out. Maybe one or two of them would get to go in a dark match. But it's a business, and it's a brutal business.
Yeah.
It's like the can man. Anybody can get it.
Yeah. That's true, man. Yeah. That's good though, man. Y'all got anything else, man, before we close it up? I appreciate you guys coming through, man. I love this right here.
Oh yeah. No, I had a good chopping. This was a good talking over here.
Enjoyed myself, Lawrence. I appreciate you having me on, man. It's an honor and pleasure, man. And I love talking boxing, talking wrestling. That's my way out. That's my woosah. I really do appreciate you for allowing me to come on here. And Bruce, man, hey, you're like another brother. We've chatted before on a different platform, so I really do appreciate you as well. So thank you.
Oh yeah.
Same here, brother.
Yeah, salute to both of you guys, man. This is a great idea, Bruce, man. I'm glad you brought this up. And it's really great because it's like a change of pace because we talk about boxing so much and the politics. It's always good to go down memory lane, and everybody got their own knowledge and views of it and experiences as a wrestling fan. And it's just good to bring it to the light because this shit, actually, it made me want to go watch some wrestling right now.
It does.
So yeah, I really appreciate it, man, because it bring it back. Your childhood days. They always tell you, cherish this time now, because when you get grown, you're gonna, you're gonna miss being a kid. So that kind of bring me back and put me in that mindset how I was when wrestling used to come on. Used to run to the house, make sure we get the right, get close to the TV and watch it. You know what I'm saying? So, and then the commercials, we doing the moves on my little brother and my friends and stuff like that. So yeah.
Oh yeah, the innocent days where the most important thing was who's wrestling in the main event on Monday.
Right.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, man. Salute. Yeah, go ahead, bro.
Sorry, brother. And you know, being able to be on here and listen to Bruce Goes and listen to Kurt, man, you know, salute to them too, because you know, there's some things that they're bringing up that I didn't even know about, and you know, I didn't hear about, and it's just being able to listen to them talk and chat about it, man. It's amazing because whatever they talk about, I'm picturing it in my head. So thank you, Bruce Goes, and a big shout out to Curtis Anderson.
Oh yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, I learned some stuff too. I thank you, Bruce, for real. I was learning some stuff, man.
Yeah, I learned a lot of stuff myself too, you know, and I just want to thank you, Lawrence and LeVar, for joining me in here and hosting this, and Rob, JC, D Hodges, Curtis Anderson, my brother, all you guys, man. You know, it's like family, and this is just like going to the matches. I dug it. We got to do it again sometime.
Oh yes, sir. We definitely got to do it again.
The whole chat.
Yes, sir. Salute to the chat. Everybody coming through. Make sure you hit the like button, man. I appreciate these two brothers right here. You know what I'm saying? Chopping up about this boxing. We're going to definitely do it again. So until next time, man, I'll holler at you guys. Y'all have a good one.
Salute, Kings.
Peace.
Salute. Peace.